Few enigmas in our world have captured our attention, imagination, and ambition quite like lost cities. While some of these ancient sites have been uncovered, and we've discussed several on this very channel, many remain hidden, buried beneath thousands of years of sediment, desert sands, or deep ocean waters. And yet, there are even more that likely never existed at all. When it comes to legendary lost cities, Atlantis, Camelot, and the like, most are probably nothing more than the imaginative creations of great storytellers. But this fact seems to have eluded many explorers who have dedicated themselves to their search. And today we're going to dive into 10 of the most incredible lost cities of myth, places that have fascinated treasure hunters, amateur archaeologists, and even seasoned professionals alike. Let's jump in. Atlantis. First described by Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 BC, Atlantis is perhaps the most famous lost city in history. According to these accounts, it lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the modern-day Strait of Gibraltar, and served as the capital of a powerful island civilization in the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlanteans, said to hail from an island larger than both Asia Minor and Libya combined, built a vast empire through advanced technology and military strength. They dominated much of the Mediterranean world, conquering territory after territory, until they were ultimately defeated by a coalition led by Athens, supposedly around 9600 BC. The city itself was described as opulent and adorned with magnificent architecture. Over time, various sources added their own interpretations and embellishments to the legend of Atlantis and its people. After their defeat, the gods, angered by the Atlanteans' moral decay and impiety, supposedly punished them by sinking the island, city and all. While many in Plato's time, and throughout much of history, regarded the story as a moral allegory rather than a literal fact, others have taken it as historical truth. Believers in Atlantis' existence have proposed numerous theories about its origin. Some suggest it was based on the Minoan civilization, while others link it to a catastrophic flood in the Black Sea around 5600 BC. One of the more unusual and less likely theories posits that massive continental shifts pushed the lost city southward, transforming it into what we now know as Antarctica. While the name Shangri-La conjures images of ancient wisdom and timeless mysticism, many might be surprised to learn that it's actually a relatively modern invention, less than a century old. The city first appeared in James Hilton's 1933 novel Lost Horizon, where a group of plane crash survivors discover a hidden, harmonious valley called the Blue Moon, nestled at the western edge of Tibet's Kunlun Mountains. There, they encounter Shangri-La, a utopian city of lamaseries, or monasteries, inhabited by Buddhist lamas. Yep, in this mythical refuge, all of the world's cultural treasures and human wisdom are said to be safeguarded against an impending global catastrophe. The city's inhabitants, primarily enlightened lamas, this is a bizarre premise for a book, are depicted as aging much more slowly than ordinary people, living for centuries as they tend to the city's vast libraries and spiritual sanctuaries. With what? Do llamas have hooves? With their hooves? Hilton claimed he was inspired by the travel writings of two 19th century French Catholic priests who had journeyed through Tibet. I'd perhaps think he was inspired by some sort of hallucinogenic drug, to be honest. That assertion of authenticity sparked a wave of real-world expeditions in search of Shangri-La, or at least the place that may have inspired it. And those llamas? Among these efforts were BBC's In Search of Myth and Heroes and the Travel Channel's Expedition Unknown, yet the clearest and perhaps most likely inspiration for Shangri-La is the Tibetan Buddhist myth of Shambhala, a hidden paradise said to preserve all human wisdom, though it was believed to lie deep within the Himalayas rather than the Kunlun Range. Regardless of its fictional origins, Shangri-La has over time become virtually synonymous with the idea of a physical and spiritual utopia, perhaps even more so than Shambhala itself. In the 89th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Fajr, it is stated, "Did you not see how your Lord dealt with Ad, the people of Irram, with their great stature, unmatched in any other land?" While this is the only direct mention of Irram of the Pillars in the Quran, the legend surrounding the city has captivated imaginations for centuries, inspiring countless works of literature and media. In Islamic tradition, the people of Ad are considered descendants of Noah, spreading out across what is now modern-day Oman and Yemen, a region known as Akhaf. The Ad established several settlements throughout this area, with Irram of the Pillars standing as the most notable among them. According to the stories, Irram flourished to be a city renowned for its grand architecture, its skyline adorned with towering buildings, luxurious mansions, and impressive llamas. No, it's monuments, impressive monuments. I can't stop thinking about the bloody llamas. Yet, as the city's power and prosperity expanded, so did the arrogance and corruption of its inhabitants. They abandoned monotheism in favor of worshipping false idols. In response, Allah sent the prophet Sayyid Hud, a relative of the people of Ad, to guide them back to righteousness and warn them of an impending divine punishment. However, his warnings were ignored. Consequently, Allah unleashed a violent windstorm that raged for 7 nights and 8 days, burying the city beneath the sands. By the 10th century, the tale of Irram had grown into a legend depicting the city as being made of gold and silver with pillars of rubies and emeralds and palaces adorned with pearl-studded windows and facades. Over time, these fascinating legends reached Europe. In 1704, the French Orientalist Antoine Galland published his translation of a collection of Arabian folktales under the title 1001 Nights. That's where it comes from, huh? By then, Irram had evolved into a fantastical city of 1,000 palaces, each supported by 1,000 pillars, surrounded by a colossal fortress said to have taken 300 years to construct. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, fascination with the lost city captivated both adventurers and scholars. T. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, famously referred to it as the Atlantis of the Sands. This intrigue led to multiple expeditions aimed at uncovering its location, and a variety of theories soon emerged. Some speculated that Irram was the fabled city of Ubar, while others suggested sites such as Damascus or different desert settlements. In 1975, a significant archaeological discovery was made at the ancient city of Ebla in modern-day Syria. Thousands of cuneiform tablets were unearthed, and some of these tablets referenced trade with a neighboring entity known as Irram. Although this evidence indicates that Irram may have indeed been a real city in the ancient world, it likely bore little resemblance to the extravagant, mythical metropolis portrayed in works of fiction, such as the 2011 video game Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception. And who could have known? Now look, at this point in the video, it's becoming clear that nearly every culture has its own version of Atlantis, and Russia, no exception. In classic folklore, Greater Cadetz was a medieval monastic city said to have been founded by Georgi II, Grand Prince of Vladimir, sometime between the late 12th and early 13th centuries. According to the Old Believers, a religious sect that broke away from the Russian Orthodox Church in the 17th century, Greater Cadetz was a serene city filled with cathedrals, monasteries, and sacred treasures. It was located on the shores of Lake Svetloya, although its precise location remained a closely guarded secret. As a peaceful spiritual center, it relied on the nearby Lesser Cadetz, also founded by Georgi II, for protection in times of danger. In the 13th century, a new danger emerged with the arrival of the Golden Horde. In the 1230s, under the leadership of Batu Khan, the Mongols invaded the region, spreading terror among the Rus people. When Batu Khan learned of Greater Cadetz and its fabled riches, he directed his forces toward the hidden city. Georgi II attempted to make a stand at Lesser Cadetz, but the Mongols overran it, forcing him to flee into the forest while taking as many treasures as he could carry. On his way to Greater Cadetz, he ensured that the invaders would not seize the city's sacred items by casting them into the lake. As the Mongols pushed him along the secret forest paths, Georgi managed to reach Greater Cadetz in time to warn its inhabitants. In response, the people turned to prayer, pleading for a divine miracle. According to some legends, the city vanished without a trace before Batu Khan arrived. In other versions, the Mongols reached the city only to witness fountains erupting from the earth, engulfing the city and sinking it beneath the waters of the lake. It is said that the city will reveal itself only to those who are pure of heart and soul, which sounds like a real thing, and also the weather has to be calm. Some still claim to hear the distant sound of choirs and the chiming of bells rising from beneath the surface of Lake Svetloya. Don't think bells underwater chime very much. To this day, historians continue to debate the origins of the King Arthur legend. While many elements of the tale, such as Merlin, Guinevere, and others, could be traced back to Geoffrey of Monmouth's 12th century History of the Kings of Britain, one iconic location is notably absent: Camelot. The first recorded mention of Arthur's famed city appeared shortly after Geoffrey's work, in the 1170s, in Chatrion de Troyes' poem Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart. There, Camelot is briefly referenced as Arthur's principal court and the place of his coronation, but not very many details are provided. Over time, medieval literature, poetry, and folklore elevated Camelot, Arthur's majestic seat of power. Although its depiction varies from story to story, Camelot is most often imagined as a grand, walled castle city nestled along a river with a towering central castle. It is portrayed as a peaceful, prosperous utopia where even the peasantry live in comfort. The surrounding countryside is typically described as lush and fertile, with dense forests and open meadows that are ideal for farming and hunting. Within the castle, nearly every version includes the legendary Round Table, where Arthur and his knights gathered as equals, a symbol of unity and fairness. In the Christianized Vulgate cycle, Camelot was originally portrayed as a pagan city until it was converted to Christianity by Joseph of Agartha, who also founded the Church of St. Stephen and Martyr. In these accounts, Camelot evolves into the ideal Christian kingdom, inspiring the construction of numerous smaller churches throughout the land. In most retellings, Camelot's fall follows the infamous affair between Guinevere and Lancelot, compounded by Mordred's betrayal and Arthur's death. Weakened and leaderless, the city becomes vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, King Mark of Cornwall launches an invasion that ultimately leads to Camelot's destruction. In more recent years, scholars and enthusiasts have attempted to identify historical or geographical roots for Camelot. Proposed locations include Caerleon in South Wales and Tintagel in Cornwall, the latter also claimed as Arthur's birthplace. Still, it is widely believed that Camelot was a later addition to the legend, a fictional creation meant to provide Arthur with a kingdom as extraordinary as his deeds. In the early 16th century, as conquistadors made their way through South America, they began to hear local legends about a mysterious tribe hidden high in the Andes Mountains in what is now modern-day Colombia. According to these tales, whenever a new chief rose to power, the tribe performed a sacred ceremony at Lake Guatavita. During the ritual, the chief was covered from head to toe in gold dust while his people cast golden jewels into the lake as offering to a god believed to dwell beneath the surface. The Spanish dubbed the Golden Chief El Dorado, or the Gilded One. Although locals insisted that the tribe had been overtaken by rivals a century earlier, fascination with the legend quickly spread. By 1541, the myth had evolved from a gilded man to a king who constantly wore gold and eventually into a grand city made entirely of gold. By 1545, Spanish explorers had become so captivated by the legend of El Dorado that they began launching expeditions in search of its riches. When they reached Lake Guatavita, they attempted to drain the body of water. Although their efforts were not completely successful, they did manage to expose part of the lake's edge, uncovering hundreds of gold objects and other treasures that lent credibility to the growing legend. In the years that followed, other conquistadors continued the search, most notably Gonzalo Pizarro. He brutally tortured local inhabitants in pursuit of information, many of whom likely fabricated stories merely to end their suffering. Ultimately, Pizarro and his expedition found nothing but starvation and an unforgiving rainforest. In the early 17th century, Sir Walter Raleigh became increasingly captivated by the legend. Convinced of its authenticity, he launched 2 expeditions in search of the Golden City. The second venture, however, ended in disaster when his son was killed during a skirmish with the Spanish. Raleigh had been under strict orders to avoid conflict with Spain, and his disobedience, along with other infractions, ultimately led to his execution when he returned to England. While many mythical lost cities take centuries to take shape in the human imagination, the promise of unimaginable wealth accelerated the legend of El Dorado from infancy to antiquity in just a few short decades. In Breton folklore, Ys was a mythical city said to lie off the coast of Brittany near the town of Douarnenez. It was built by King Gradlon, a pious and noble ruler who was accompanied by his daughter Dahut, a rebellious, free-spirited, and sometimes mischievous young woman. Because of Dahut's love of the sea, legend has it that Gradian constructed Ys below sea level. The city was protected by an ingenious network of dikes and an advanced system of sluice gates that allowed ships to enter while defending against floods and natural disasters. Although Gradlon resided in a grand palace of marble, cedar, and gold, he was known for remaining humble and devout, unlike Dahut, who did not share her father's virtues. From this point onward, the legends diverge, but 2 elements do remain constant. Dahut is the worst, and Ys sinks beneath the waves. In one version, Dahut, drunk and toying with her lover, steals the key to the city's water gates from her father. In their recklessness, they open the gates, allowing a monstrous storm to flood the city and bury it beneath the sea. In another version, Ys grows into a commercial metropolis so decadent that it borders on sinful. Saint Gwynol, founder of the first monastery in Brittany, warns the people of their arrogance and the dangers it invites. From there, the story veers into the fantastical, just in case it wasn't there already, featuring enchanted oak trees, magical fish, and literal demons. Regardless, in the end, the result is the same, and Ys drowns due to divine punishment. In some versions, Dorado is even transformed into a mermaid, cursed to haunt the Bay of Doranez for eternity. One of the most iconic features of the city was the Great Bell of Ys, a towering cathedral whose bell rang out in times of danger. The bell tower was said to be so tall that it guided the righteous King Gradlon and a handful of others to safety during the flood. According to the legend, one day Ys will rise again from beneath the sea, and when that day arrives, whoever first sees the city or hears the ringing of the great bell will be crowned the new king. According to Arabic legends, somewhere west of the Nile River, likely in modern-day Egypt or Libya, lies Zazura, the most perfect desert oasis city in the world. Written accounts dating back as far as the 13th century describe the Oasis of Little Birds, a name that captured the imagination of the medieval Arabic world. Survivors would occasionally emerge from the desert with extraordinary tales of a hidden city that had saved them from certain doom. By most accounts, Zazura was a gleaming white city, its color as pure as a dove, ruled by a sleeping king and queen. It was said to be guarded by vigilant black giants and enclosed by tall walls with majestic gates. According to the stories, sculpted birds perched near the gates held keys in their beaks which were available to any weary traveler in need. Within the city, opulent homes reportedly had abundant access to fresh water, each complete with pools, springs, and fountains that flowed freely amid the arid landscape. Over time, these legends made their way to Europe, most notably through Gardiner Wilkinson, often regarded as the father of British Egyptology. In 1935, Wilkinson heard a tale from a local who claimed to have become lost in the desert while searching for his camel. After wandering for days across the scorching sands, the man stumbled upon an oasis surrounded by shady palms, freshwater springs, and striking ancient ruins. He called the place Wadi Zazura, a name that Wilkinson later shared with his European contemporaries, linking the site to the fabled Arabic legend. Inspired by these accounts, a wave of European adventurers set out to discover the lost city. Among them was British explorer Ralph Bagnold, who founded the Zazura Club in 1930 with the express goal of locating the mysterious oasis. Unlike many lost cities throughout history, which often serve as cautionary tales against impiety or hubris, Zazura offers something different: hope. For those lost in the endless desert, it represents the promise that if one keeps moving forward, salvation may finally be within reach. Now, as we saw with the legend of El Dorado, the conquistadors' obsession with uncovering vast treasures in Latin America spurred countless expeditions in search of indigenous lost cities, and the city of the Caesars was no exception. Also known as the Wandering City, this mythical metropolis was said to lie somewhere in Patagonia, the remote southern region of South America. In some versions of the legend, it was hidden between two mountains, one made of diamonds, the other of gold. Other accounts claim that it existed in a real mountainous location, only revealing itself on rare, mysterious occasions. According to the stories, the city stood beside a vast blue lake. Its streets were paved in perfect cobblestones, its buildings crafted from silver, and its homes filled with gems, gold, and countless treasures. Its inhabitants were said to be blonde-haired, blue-eyed people who spoke an unknown language and wore distinctive three-cornered hats. This led some to speculate that they were survivors of a Spanish shipwreck who went on to establish the city. Others believed that the citizens of the city of the Caesars were none other than the legendary Patagonian giants first described by Ferdinand Magellan's chronicler Antonio Pigafetta. Despite what the name might suggest, a Roman connection that has even given rise to various conspiracy theories, the city was actually named after Francisco Caesar, a Spanish explorer who in 1528 broke off from an expedition near Buenos Aires in search of it. In reality, the city appears to have emerged from a blend of pre-existing local myths and Caesar's own imaginative ideas. Nevertheless, the legend grew, inspiring many to seek it out. Among these was Hernando Arias del Saavedra, a former governor of Rio de la Plata region, who led an expedition in 1604. Perhaps the most fascinating group to take up the search, though, were the Jesuit missionaries of the 17th and 18th centuries. Convinced of the city's existence, they came to believe that it might be a literal heaven on earth, prompting them to launch multiple expeditions in pursuit of its wonders. In 1873, French writer Louis-Jacques Allot, who had spent time in India and developed a deep fascination with its culture, published Les Filles de Dieu, The Sons of God. I'm sorry for my French pronunciation. I got a C at GCSE French. Yes. In the book, Jacques describes a mystical city called Agartha, which he claimed had once served as the ancient capital of India, ruled directly by the gods as their earthly seat of power. Although he asserted that the city had long since been destroyed, likely when the gods departed the world, he also maintained that its entrance remained hidden deep within the Himalayas. This ambiguity provided ample room for future writers to reinterpret and expand on the story. Jacques Agartha was an evident fusion of Hindu and Norse mythologies, with the name and concept bearing a striking resemblance to Asgard, the celestial realm of the Norse gods. I know Asgard from Stargate. However, later occultists, most notably Alexandre Saint-Yves of Alvedra. Let me try that again. Alexandre Saint-Yves de Alvedra. I'm sorry, French people, all right? Transformed the idea into something far more elaborate and distinct, a secret thriving kingdom known as Agartha. According to these expanded accounts, Agartha is an entire civilization located deep within the Earth's core, never destroyed and still flourishing to this day. In the Earth's core. It's hot down there, guys. From this subterranean realm, it is said to connect all of Earth's continents via a vast network of tunnels, supposedly constructed by a race of ancient powerful beings known as the Old Ones. Creative, these entities are described as being vastly superior to humans in physical, mental, and spiritual abilities. If that sounds familiar, it's because Agartha quickly became entangled with the Hollow Earth theory, a fringe idea that gained popularity in the late 19th century. For some reason. Within this framework, Agartha is portrayed as a hidden metropolis filled with enormous libraries, flying vehicles, and technologies far more advanced than anything on the surface. Its population, numbering in the millions, is believed to wield both magical and technological dominance over surface dwellers, and to be ruled by a mysterious figure known as the Master, the King of Agartha. Some versions of the legends even connect Agartha to Atlantis, suggesting that it became the final refuge of the Atlanteans after their city sank beneath the sea. In most retellings, Agartha once existed on the surface, but retreated underground as the world grew increasingly violent and unstable. Believers claim it will re-emerge once humanity is spiritually and morally prepared to receive it. But I promise you, it won't. In recent years, thanks in part to viral YouTube videos and fringe internet articles, a widely circulated fact has emerged claiming that President John Quincy Adams funded an expedition to the South Pole in search of the Hollow Earth and, by extension, Agartha. But this does not hold up to scrutiny. The discussion in question occurred in 1826, decades before Jacques introduced the concept of Agartha. Moreover, while Adams did support an exploratory mission proposed by Jeremiah N. Reynolds, he only did so after Reynolds agreed to strip the proposal of its more fantastical elements. In truth, the idea that Adams was hunting for Agartha is as mythical as the city itself. Thanks for watching.